Welcome to the social work race, guys. Welcome back. You know what we do here. We talk all things social work and anybody else on the front line, whether you're a student, right up to the, forgive my slip of the tongue, right up to the most experienced of us. You know, I created this channel, as I say in all my podcasts, or almost all of them, to say that this is a really good resource for us to reflect, for those of us who are on the front line, on what we are doing with our people, with our service users. And today is an interesting topic, a heavy topic. And this discussion or this discourse will help anyone who is on the front line doing their frontline work, their direct work, or if they are doing assessments. This is big. This is really big for that. This topic causes us to reflect on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. And the topic is really centered around a young lady who's been in the news in the UK, Shamima Begum, a young lady that was radicalized at the age of 15, around about 15. Sad to say that Islam gets a lot of negative press, and this didn't really help the cause of the faith. Although it's a different religion to mine, I stand up for religious liberty, and I don't appreciate unnecessary negative discourse on any group. Forgive me while I sip my lemongrass and ginger tea. Apparently this is, mum-in-law gave me this lemongrass from St. Lucia, Jamaica. And I've got this really hot ginger. So that's me, you know how I do it. So let me get back on topic. People who receive unnecessary attention through really poorly thought out social media or mainstream media narrative, it annoys me. So I challenge it. And a question I have for you is, when we see young people commit crime, do we see them as children? So you'll have, for example, someone who is deemed a child, but you could say, deemed a child, but they appear to be an adult. So they could have a beard, moustache, they could be 6 foot tall, broken voice, I don't know, female and all the attributes. When we see them, I think sometimes we see an adult. And because of maybe their size and the way they carry themselves, we would see them not necessarily as a child. But this creates a dilemma. This creates a big dilemma, because if we don't see them as a child, and how do we treat people who are not 18 as children at all? And if we don't have that line drawn, then we could say that everybody who commits a crime should be treated exactly the same. Well, we don't do that here in the UK. I'm going to give you an example of what we're dealing with here. I remember when I worked in the youth offending service, there was a young man who kept going missing. And he was obviously groomed by older men. We knew that. And we had served a restraining order on one of the older men who was in his 20s to stay away from this young man, because he, as well as others, were up and down the UK shoplifting. That was their thing. And we observed that through camera footage and observing the card purchases. And the young man had already been convicted of a shoplifting offence. So this was his cultural thing, but he was being groomed by older men to do so. And I would attend various strategy meetings for this young man because he was 17. He was 3, 2, and 1 weeks away from being 18, an adult. Now, in that time where we would have strategy meetings, this young man, the urgency from the social worker and all the other professionals to get hold of him and get him into placement so that we could provide interventions for him to stop committing crime and be safe. Because one of the worst things that a young person could do, really, one of the worst things in general practice is that they go missing. We don't know where they are. We don't know who they're with. We don't know what they're doing. Are they hurt? Are they being abused? Are they being forced into any kind of illegal activity? We don't know. We need to know. And the country takes its obligation really serious to make sure that young people are safe. And there was serious urgency around this young man. And someone said in the meeting, well, he will soon be 18. And the professional chair in the meeting said, we don't want to hear that. As far as we are concerned, he's still a child. And until the very hour before his birthday, we will work hard to safeguard him. So there was a lot of pressure to find him. And that pressure was on my head. And it was really to convince him to meet me, just so we could lay eyes on him to make sure that he was safe. In the UK, a child is defined in the Children's Act. Not only in the Children's Act, I think in the Children and Young Persons Act as well of 1933, I believe. But we have that definition also in the Children's Act, 1989 and 2004, as anyone who has not yet reached their 18th birthday. Remember, and some spanners can be thrown into the works because it's tough. Because if anybody remembers, and if you don't know this case, look it up. It's very interesting. The Jamie Bolger case, a young, was it 4-year-old that was murdered by 2 boys who were about 10 years old. And it was quite a graphic story. I won't go into the details, but these 2 young boys killed him gruesomely as well. And the question is, what do we do with them? Are they children? Yes, they are children. Do we sentence them as we would an adult? Do they go to jail? What do we do with 10-year-olds who commit murder? Dilemma. And by dilemma, I mean we don't really know what to do. But I'm convinced that much of this country, and I say much, anyone outside of the criminal justice system and social services wouldn't really know what to do with a 17-year-old or 16-year-old, or let's go there, 15-year-old. Because Shamima Begum was 15 years old when she was being radicalized. What does this mean for our practice? We'll come to that. But I want you to know that when I go into Google, just to look at how this country sees a child and the risks of radicalization, all of the information is there. I would like to suggest that all local authorities know what it means to radicalize a child into extremism, and they have a strategy to manage that. And we've got something called Prevent, which is a project, I think it's a government-supported project, where radicalization is tackled because it's real, very real. For various political reasons, it's real. But I'm going to play you an audio, and I want you to hear this out. Have a discussion with your friends, your family, or your cohort, your colleagues around what you're about to hear.
I think this is a joke.
Go on.
I think this understanding Shamima Begum is an absolute joke. I'm Irish. I'm telling you, she's a traitor.
Okay.
She turned around and she joined the country. She went to a country willingly,
Yes.
which executes gays, homosexuals.
Not a
any
country
Christians,
in the conventional sense, but an organisation, a caliphate. I'm glad you mentioned being Irish. You mentioned being Irish. You remember William Joyce?
Yeah, Lord Haw Haw.
What happened to him at the end of the Second World War?
They hung him
Where?
in England.
He wasn't even British.
No, he was Irish, but you know
He was a traitor. He was brought back to the UK. He was tried and he was executed here. But you wouldn't have wanted that to happen. You'd have wanted him to be left.
I would have.
You'd have just left him where he was.
He should have been shot in the head.
No. We're talking about what you'd have just left him where he was. You wouldn't have brought him back to Britain and punished him.
Yes, but what I'm saying to you is that there's this. No, don't sneer, James.
I'm giggling.
Don't giggle.
Well, I will giggle. I reserve the right to giggle. It's a great British value.
You are willing.
Giggling.
To allow a girl, you're saying this girl, she's a British citizen, she renounced her citizenship. She joined a caliphate.
She didn't renounce her citizenship.
When she joined...
No, she didn't renounce her citizenship. I'm not even sure you can,
so you're telling me, if you join an enemy country, because the caliphate was...
Like William Joyce did. Like William Joyce did.
Yes.
Yes. Who we brought back to Britain and executed. We brought him back to Britain and executed after a trial. No, you're standing up for the Nazis, John. You're saying that we shouldn't have done that. We should have left him where he was because he renounced his citizenship when he went off to work for the Nazis.
No, I'm saying they should have shot him where he was.
No. Oh, okay, so you're going to go to Syria now and shoot Shamima Begum.
No, I'm not.
What are you going to do then?
Don't play the... I will leave her there.
Okay, and then we take that precedent, and that's what you would have done to Lord Haw Haw as well, which I think is despicable. He was a disgusting traitor. He should have been brought back to Britain and put on trial. I can't believe you're in favour of letting him go free.
No, don't play the tin. Don't do this, James. Don't try and be smart.
I've already done it, John. I've already done it, John, and I am.
You are for bringing back a girl.
You're for letting Lord Haw Haw go free.
No, I didn't say that.
You did.
No, you didn't. No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
What I'm saying to you is, are you saying, so I'll ask you a question. You said, 15. Right. I'm going to be controversial. Are you saying that about the James Bulger's killers as well, one who was caught with child pornography later?
They were on trial, they were put through the legal process, and they were punished accordingly.
So you think
they were treated differently from they would have been? They were treated differently from how they would have been if they'd been adults. So what point? I want to examine all of these brilliant points you're making.
James, ask me. And
I find it interesting that a man feels that this girl is a traitor to the country before anything. In fact, he's not even considering anything else. And I would like to say that this man is very much ill-informed about the reality of the situation. Let's have a look at what the country thinks about us as children, or about our children. The Children's Act, it points to the local authorities to have a duty. They actually have a duty of care to support young people at risk. The Crime and Disorder Act gives statutory requirements for youth offending teams. For those who don't know, the youth offending service is where young people commit crime. Anyone under the age of 18, when they commit a crime, they will fall under the youth offending service. Sometimes they can fall out of it and go straight to Crown, depending on if it's a grievous or heinous crime. But generally, they will be treated as children, and that will be determined in court for their offences. And so the youth offending teams are in every local authority, and the law requires youth offending teams to provide strategies to prevent young people from offending, which means that we see people under the age of 18 as needing support when they commit crimes, as opposed to when they're 18 and over, where they will be treated as an adult, and if it requires, they go to jail. We don't provide strategies to prevent adults from offending. We have to do that by law for young people, though. The Criminal Justice Act 2003 gives us the bandwidth for understanding who, and helps us define who young people are when laws are broken. The Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, better known as the PACE Act, that when young people are arrested, there needs to be an appropriate adult. Why? Because they're underage. We have to draw that line. Well, what if a young person knows how to represent themselves? It's beside the point. We have lines that we need to draw in law to protect a child, and they have to have an appropriate adult. Mom, dad, uncle, older sister, brother, aunts. Yeah? The Equality Act 2010, the youth offending teams should uphold, check this out, the youth offending teams need to uphold the rights of young people and practice, as far as possible, anti-discrimination. What if a young person is being groomed by someone who is older than them, or older, you could say older, or has power over them? We have something called the National Referral Mechanism. So if there is a victim of exploitation, let's say a young man is being forced at gunpoint or in threat of his life, classically, this is the case on the streets now, and they're saying, sell these drugs or we're going to hurt you. So he sells these drugs, goes again, and then the police catch him. They take the drugs. He should be prosecuted, as they are. But what if he says, they made me do it? Well, we have this mechanism as a bridge, and sometimes a young person can be acquitted or no further action be taken because they have provided enough evidence to suggest that they are being exploited. The Legal Aid, Sentencing and Punishment of Offenders Act 2012, if you are aged between 10 and 17 years old, you must be treated the same. So we recognize children in this country. We know what they are. But after listening to that audio, what do you think? That voice is a representation of many people's voices. When we see young people commit crimes that we do not like, we do not want to see them as children anymore, or young people. We don't consider them. We don't consider them vulnerable. We don't consider that, as local authorities do, we don't consider that maybe someone has something over them. Maybe they're heavily influenced. Maybe they have an identity crisis. Maybe they are forming their identity. And someone, actually, let's go deeper. We can use the word grooming. And people who groom others, especially when olders groom youngers. I mean, this is really evident in sexual exploitation cases. Where someone, you see, the thing is about predators, right? Predators know what they're doing. They know who to look for. I remember watching a video of a young man. He was probably about 21, 23 years old, and he was exploiting other young people, bringing them into selling drugs in county lines or running county lines. And he said, we look for the young men or the young boys outside of school who we know they do not have fathers. If they have fathers, we don't bother. But if they don't have fathers, we know that they are vulnerable. He said that. That's what I do. He said they're the easiest to groom. I mean, are we getting this? Wow. Shamima Begum was 15 when she was radicalized. This country takes radicalization very seriously. If we suspect it, we report it. Schools, every institution is obliged to report what they suspect to be radicalization. This young lady attempted to commit an act of violence against this country. She finds herself in another country, and we didn't take her back. We should have. She belongs to us. She's a British citizen. She belongs to us. She is our child. She is ours. We are responsible for her. Why? Because she was vulnerable. Because someone saw a weakness and exploited it. But because the voice of the people is great, we made a decision to leave her as knowing what she was doing at her age. We left her where she is. We didn't apply for her to be deported back to her own country. We left her where she was. And that concerns me. Because this country has some of the greatest values in the world. And we've abandoned them for political reasons. But this goes greater than the politics. Because on the front line, we have to remember that these are children, and it's very difficult to do that when we are working with the vulnerable. We mustn't forget that they are children and they are ours. Shamima Begum angered a lot of people. And I'm ashamed to say that they do not know what they're saying. And I would challenge anyone to reconsider. I would challenge anyone at any time to reconsider that when they see someone under 18, they're seeing a child or a young person. And when they are doing things that are destructive, we always see them as a victim. Or at least a victim first. So when we're completing our assessments, we have to rationalize this. We look for clues. We look for reasons to make sense of why someone under the age of 18 would do this. Why would they plant a bomb? Why would they stab and kill? Yeah, we put them in prison for it, but we also have strategies to support them. Why do they do that? And there's a reason. We look for the reason. We rationalize it in theory. What made them do it? Not just on a broad scale, but on a real bespoke scale. Why did John Smith do what he did? Dad was missing. Mum was an addict. He lives in a family where crime is the way. He can't read, he can't write. He's easily led, he has ADHD. Yeah, we have all that for our people here, but when it comes to something like with Shamima Begum, no, it doesn't matter, we don't care. We didn't consider the same thing for her. So I consider that some people don't realize how racist they might be. When we're completing our assessments, we are obliged to understand our children and help make sense of their world and their plight when they are taken advantage of. With this young man that was running around the country that I told you about, why was he doing that? Who was leading him? Why did he feel so drawn to these people? What was he getting out of it? We should be asking those questions first before we cast judgment. So that's an encouragement for, if you're a student listening to this, this heavy episode, I would encourage you to, you're going to come across vulnerable people, and that it doesn't just fall on children. It also falls into the realm of adult social care as well, where we're trying to assess the needs of people and assess their maybe their disconnect, their disability. We need to understand it and get our head around it. And so we build a picture through theory to understand their world. If they will share with us, even better. But they're our children, and service users are our clients. We work for them. And I will be damned if I give up any child for any reason, for any political reason. I really do hope that I never find myself in that situation. But rather, we have been trained as social workers to be advocates. If they do not have a voice, we are their voice. Family practitioners, key workers, we are the child's voice. And if there's anyone out there who really does raise their voice, it's the key worker, it's the family practitioner, the key workers in schools, the teachers, the professionals who are working in special educational needs provisions. They have got the loudest voice because they understand the child. Some children cannot, even in their teenage years, do not have the capacity to articulate their lives, their struggles, their weaknesses. They don't have it. They can speak English. They can have a basic conversation, yes. And I'm not talking about children with necessarily mental health issues. I'm talking about young people who are marginalized. They do not necessarily have the capacity or the ability or the reflective ability to articulate why they do what they do. That's why we assess and protect. And just because Shamima Begum was a Muslim and because she was radicalized in a way that we don't like, it's a horrible narrative that is in society. There are some of us here who actually see differently. She's our child. And if I read through every local authority's paperwork, I'm looking at one now. If we look through, we have the list of the vulnerability and risk indicators, understanding and recognizing the risks and vulnerabilities of radicalization. We understand how it works. We have, every local authority has its strategy, and there is a national strategy. So we understand what she went through. Why isn't anyone speaking up about it? Well, it starts here. I'm speaking up about it. And when the young person doesn't have a voice or doesn't understand their own voice, we'll speak for them in a way that they will agree. That's our job. And that's my encouragement to you. I hope this was helpful. It's very difficult to talk about it because I have a lot more anger in my heart that is coming through the mic. I'm going to sip on my tea and hopefully this will be of some real value to you. Take care of yourselves.